paid goons. This is another thing that we've also seen. It's another tactic that the government is employing, whereby we were seeing that there's legit protesters on the streets, but then there's other guys carrying rungus. I remember back in the day, because unajua me when I was nilikuwa mdogo, me street action ilikuwa ni yangu. There was a group called Kamjesh. I don't know if you guys remember Kamjesh.
Nakumbuka Kamjesh, tulipigana nao sana.
So Kamjesh walikuwa ni goons wa Moi. The Wamoi's goon. So this thing is not new. Hii kitu ya goonery is not new with Sakaja. It's just that Sakaja, I don't think Sakaja properly understands the science of goonery.
Ngumi ni mbwekse. And by the way, Sakaja is a changeria.
Unajua nini?
Changes to Lenana, right? Lenana is cool.
An embarrassment to Lenana.
Oh, by the way, ngumi ni mbwekse. Ngumi ni Ali, hold on.
Ali, just take your nini.
Ali.
No,
Ali, ngumi ni mbwekse.
We're offering him to Nairobi school.
Well, no. Ngumi ni mbwekse.
Whenever you see, whenever you see, like for example, Miguna being deported and you're celebrating, just know that
siku yako
inakuja. Your day is coming.
Wakikuyu usema shome yako iliko.
Yeah, that one right there. And that's what I'm saying. and that's why
ukiona mwenzako?
Mwenzako
akinyolewa
tia maji. Yeah. So I think that's why I struggle with people like Matiangi who are enforcing the deportation of Miguna, like a bona fide Kenyan. And that's the reason why I, I'm not doing any purity tests, but for someone like Matiangi, I struggle. I struggle with vitu kama hizo hapo.
So
now I'll give an interesting story here. During Uhuru's, because these things, they started at Uhuru's time. Uhuru, I think Uhuru is one of the luckiest presidents ever. That he had, I would call it a failed presidency in terms of the economy. Uhuru did a pathetic job. But then he got a lucky break that he got someone who's doing even worse. So now it's making him look like he was so it's making him look like a giant amongst dwarfs. So that's where Uhuru is. During Uhuru's time, something used to happen. Hii mambo ya abductions did not start with Ruto. So abductions did not even start with Uhuru. With all the goodness that Kibaki had, there were certain things
started with his father.
So there were certain things that were happening. Now, do you know where the abductions were happening at that time ya Kibaki? Because kulikuwa na hii issue ya terrorism. So they were randomly picking up Muslim kids. Abu Drogo is one person.
No,
If you come from any and Sheila, you can attest to, if you come from any Muslim community, this thing affected our communities in a bad way. And I remember when I used to bring it up those days, like people would even come and label me, oh hey, you're a sympathizer. And what I kept telling people,
actually Al-Shabaab.
Yes, yeah. And you see, what I was trying to tell people those days, you guys are gonna do this when people are being randomly picked until the day itawafikia. So now, easy abductions, that's where they started, but now zikakuja, zikafikia now regular people without names like Ali and Muhammad. Zikawafikia, now it has become a big issue. But back then, we would try to raise our voices on it. And man, social media was so hostile. It was so hostile. Ulikuwa unaitwa Al-Shabaab, unaitwa sympathizer na nini. And that's why I tell people, be very, very careful. Hata hii kitu ya like kids are being executed in the streets, and then watu wanasema ati watoto walikuwa wamesumbua sana. Let it happen. But now that execution has now come to regular vendors who are selling masks. Si ule ofisa alikuwa anaitwaje, ule Rashid, ule ambaye alikuwa akiwa watoto.
Huyo.
Yeah, si people were saying ati
ule Isli.
Yeah, ule Isli alikuwa anasema ati But you see, the problem of allowing something like that is that it's gonna come and be used for personal use. look at what has happened to Albert Ojwang. Albert Ojwang, this was a case, huyu DIG, I don't know what kind of power this DIG had, because
A lot.
Good
I
question.
think he was given power to do this work for politicians. I think now when leadership, they have someone they want to discipline and everything,
kuna siku
they would contract him. Ngoja nimalize Mika. They would contract him, but I think now he felt like hata pia mimi unajua kama vile una drive you drive Benz ya Mdosi, you're the driver, but then every now and then when Mdosi is busy you feel like you can go see your chick with a Benz. So I think that's what happened. Huyu DIG was the mastermind of doing this for people
For the
high
bigger
above.
people, yeah.
But now he started seeing hii kitu hata pia mtu mimi akinitukana I can use it for personal gain. And I think,
Finya.
And I think unfortunately it was one of those situations where unatumia Benz ya driver kwenda kuona demo wako and then unapata accident hiyo siku.
But let's remember that the story that Ojwang
I mean,
broke was a story
Yeah.
of corruption. Of I don't know how many
Yes.
billions is funneled to this person. So it wasn't even an issue of nimetusiwa. It was an issue
Of corruption.
I am at risk because now I can be looked into for corruption.
Yes.
And then the other thing we need to remember is that it's a Cyber Crimes Act that got Ojwang where he was. That act was passed in 2018. And that's the one where a defamation case becomes a criminal case. And all of a sudden, if you insult someone, we can put you in a cell and do whatever we want without proving that indeed Langat is not corrupt. Before we prove Langat is corrupt, you're in a cell.
You're in a cell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, like these are the things that I sometimes miwa nakaa na smile kando because I remember back in those days when social media was so hostile. Like you try to bring something up.
Like Latinos, that's too soon. Latinos.
No, apana, that's a different
What
story.
about Latinos?
That's a story for another day. That's a story for another day.
I
They're
will
finding
vote
out.
for Donald Trump.
Yeah, they're finding out. They're finding out the wrong way. But I always say, whenever you see,
Oh, yeah.
whenever you see, like for example, Miguna being deported and you're celebrating, just know that
Siku yako inakam.
siku yako
Inakuja.
inakuja. Your day is coming.
Wakikuyu husema shome yako iliko.
Yeah,
Eh.
that one right there. And that's what I'm saying. and that's why
Ukiona
personally,
mwenzako
ukiona
Mwenzako
ananyolewa.
akinyolewa,
Yeah.
tia
Tia
yako maji.
maji.
Yeah. So I think that's why I struggle with people like Matiangi who are enforcing the deportation of Miguna, like a
Yeah.
bona fide Kenyan.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I, I'm not doing any purity tests, but for someone like Matiangi, I struggle. I struggle with vitu kama hizo hapo.
So kwa huyo unataka litmus paper uone kama inaweza nini?
No, Matiangi,
Matiangi is out.
and I'm sorry to say it, his people have and you see the other problem that also happens because I think people are realizing what's happening. They're now looking for tokens to say, oh, Matiangi has supporters from other communities. Na hizo ndo game ambazo
Kuna
we
kitu
do not play.
tunasahau.
Yeah.
He works for the World Bank.
Yes, he does work for the
Yeah,
World
he
Bank.
works for the World Bank.
Yes, he
Yeah.
works for the World Bank, which is also World Bank is also not a very good friend.
Then
of ours,
he's
as we think.
his career old school politician. Like alafu basically tunajua huyu jamaa kukuwa na dea campaign inasponsoriwa na mtu. Huyo mtu ni Uhuru.
Yeah, a presidential campaign is very expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
Wasn't he kind of the de facto deputy during Uhuru's term, right?
They've kind of- they
Enforcer.
had-
I would
He was
call
his
him an
enforcer.
enforcer. I don't know if I'd
Yeah.
call him a deputy. I would have called him more of an enforcer, as in he's being told, go
Hata si
do.
enforcer.
Okay.
Mr. Fix It.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
Mr.
sorry.
Fix It,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Fix It.
Yeah. So again, 2 years is not a long time, and in the next episode we're gonna have, I want the two of you to figure out who are the people that we should be looking towards as we're approaching 2027, because at the end of the day, a decision has to be made, and we only have 2 years to make that decision, and that's a very tough decision. Now, outside that,
Hajakoya.
storia paid protesters, paid goons. This is another thing that we've also seen. It's another tactic that the government is employing, whereby we were seeing that there's legit protesters on the streets, but then there's other guys carrying rungus. I remember back in the day, because unajua mi when nilikuwa mdogo, mi street action ilikuwa ni yangu. There was a group called Kamjesh. I don't know if you guys remember Kamjesh.
Nakumbuka Kamje sasa tulipigana nao sana.
So Kamjesh ilikuwa walikuwa ni goons wa Moi. The Wamboi is Goon. So this thing is not new. Hii kitu ya goonery is not new with Sakaja. It's just that Sakaja, I don't think Sakaja properly understands the science of goonery.
Ngumi ni mbwekse. And by the way, Sakaja za Chenjeria.
Unajua nini? Club
Yes.
Days ilikuwa
Oh,
ngapi?
changes to Lenana, right?
Yeah.
Lenana school.
An embarrassment to Lenana.
Oh, by the way, ngumi ni mbwekse. Ngumi ni Ali, hold on.
Ali, just take your nini.
No.
that's okay.
Ali.
No.
Ali,
Take
ngumi ni
your
mbwekse.
We're
Wait.
offering him to Nairobi school.
Well, no. Ngumi ni mbwekse. Ngumi ni mbwekse.
No, we're offering him to Nairobi
Si
school.
ni ngumi ni mbwekse.
We're offering him to Nairobi school.
No.
Yeah.
We're not going
But
to accept.
Ali,
In Sakaja, I don't think he properly understood
What do you think he failed?
the science of
Where did he fail?
of goonery. No, his people, like Kamjesh was so effective. The good thing about being in street action back in the day as kids, our manini, they were not bothered with kids. So, and with kids you have an innocence where you're going out, there is kuna rabsha huko, kuna chaos, watu wanapigwa na nini, but wewe you're out there,
Unapenya.
you want to see the action.
yeah, wale walikuwa kwanza wanakupea mawe urushe.
So those guys, by the way, wanakupatia mawe saa zingine, wanakupatia mawe na kuambia rushia wale watu. But they were so effective, they knew when to come, they would come and they would do their work so quick and they would go.
What is work?
Their work is to,
Disruption.
for example, if you have a political rival,
Okay.
and they're holding a rally and this political rival is popular and you want to go to disrupt it. In fact, back in those days, there was something called Mlolongo. I think you guys are not familiar with what.
Mlolongo system.
So Mlolongo, actually Kanu had a Mlolongo system until 2002 nominations. They were still doing Mlolongo. So Mlolongos during nomination day, Sheila unakuja, na we Joy unakuja, on nomination day, mnasimama hapo.
Yeah.
Then
Behind the candidate.
Then your candidates, then your people who are voting for you, they stand on a line. Whoever has the longer line wins. So what used to happen, and don't ask me how I know this, what used to happen is they would pay people when they know that it's about that time to be counted. So si line yako Sheila ndo iko na watu wengi, na line ya Joy iko na watu kidogo. So now people would go, goons would place themselves strategically in your line. Now right before, minutes before, like it's called, they all unleash whips, and they're different parts of the line. They unleash whips, wanaanza kuchapa watu, and they're like, so it's like kuna hapa moja mwanzo, katikati, like in every 10 people.
He was one of the whippers.
So when the whips come out, people are running.
Yeah.
Now when the people run, the counting is being done, and that's in one line. So now Joy, the candidate who had fewer people on the line, becomes the winner because all your people wamekimbia. That's why I'm saying vitu vimetoka mbali sana. Yeah, ballot boxes used to be black in color. Black, unaona, black like this. These transparent ballot boxes, this is a recent thing. So what used to happen, ballot box inaingia, and then it already has votes inside. No, it already has votes inside. So when mnapiga kura, like for example, Sheila is a popular candidate, mnapiga kura, and we know that popular, but when zinamwagwa zinahesabiwa, Joy ndo akona kura nyingi because it was the provincial administration. There was no IEBC. There was no electoral commission. Our wanaitwa, now they're called regional commissioners, and those are the ones who used to run elections. Yeah. And this is as recently.
So
as
people
the
in
90s.
government used to be there.
Yes, so that's why I'm saying
Actually not 90s, 2002 election
until 2002 elections, there were still black ballot boxes that were being.
So Kibaki won under that.
The reason why Kibaki won is because it was overwhelming.
The whole opposition came together.
It was so overwhelming.
No arguing.
So anytime when the gap is small, and that's the reason why to defeat Ruto, there has to be someone who can garner 60%.
And then
because this close elections. Mika.
Remember for Kibaki to win, you remember that day of voting, everybody was like, vijana, laleni na kura, msiende nyumbani, stay in the polling stations. And actually, what most people don't realize, our millennials, when they were young, year 2002, we slept at the polling station to count kura. Like, like we were counting up, ikikauntiwa. So, that is another thing that most people don't usually highlight about 2002. But if the youth in 2002 had not slept in polling stations, that election could have been rigged.
Yes, it would have been rigged. And that's why I'm saying we've come from a very long we've come from a very far place, and that's why I'm saying, like, even the idea, unaona kama Tanzania, where Tanzania is today is where Kenya was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Tanzania does not have an independent
IEBC.
electoral commission. Tanzania does not have so it's whatever the government says.
Yeah.
Tanzania does not have an independent judiciary. Like, it is it's still controlled
You
by
can
the
try an
president.
opposition leader for treason.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can
The
try an
president
opposition
controls
leader for treason.
the Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
So Tanzania was politically a black box for me until the recent abductions of
Boniface Mwangi.
Boniface and
Yeah.
Agatha.
And Agatha,
I really
yes.
didn't know much about Tanzanian political. I mean, you hear a little bit in the news,
Yes.
and I think the idea was that they're polite. I always used to say, oh, Tanzanians are just really polite compared to Kenyans.
That has
And
been
so-
exposed.
And once that happened, I said, oh my God,
Yes.
The absence
I
of
s-
war is not peace.
exactly.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was like, this is insane.
At a what?
The absence of war is not peace.
And actually,
Ateweta watia.
and that's called
The absence of war is not peace, because just because things are quiet things are quiet in Tanzania because they're being managed. Today I was watching some speaker speak in Tanzania, and he was telling people that we need to reserve our peace. We need to support our president, because if we don't support our president, we'll move backwards. Like, there's a lot of government propaganda that's coming out that's saying,
Suppression,
if you don't support our government, we will be very far behind.
it's called weaponization of peace.
That one.
So weaponization of peace, Moi was very, very effective at using that tool, and would always call people who want multi-party politics as seditionists, as watu ambao wanataka kuleta uchochezi.
Treasonous.
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 Ruto's language.
Treasonous.
Treason.
Exactly.
They're
Yeah.
Do you know
Ruto's
how
language.
many people were
Yeah.
nini? How
Ruto's
many
language.
people during Moi's time were actually charged with treason? Kina Wangamati,
Yes.
Shikuku,
Yes.
Koigi. Moi.
I remember the time when I wrote that essay. That thing was such a big deal at home, and I don't know how. And the funny thing is, I was in Moi school. I went to Moi Educational Center in primary, in South Sea. So that thing became such a big deal. Nyumbani, I remember my uncle. My uncles were being called from
Takuharibia
Mombasa.
watu kazi
Na nini.
huyu.
It was such a big. It was so bad because.
Do you
at that
remember what
time-
you wrote? Or do you even have a sample? Did you
You
get
should
it?
I
have
think,
kept
I
it.
think, I
Can-
think,
can
I think
you
my mom,
recreate
I
it?
think
Should have
my
been
mom still
framed.
has a copy.
Yeah, you should have
and
framed
I wanna
it.
get it.
Yeah.
Can you
Find out,
recreate
because
it?
we would like to. It would
Yeah.
be interesting. It would be nice to see what you wrote, because
Yeah,
Huyu
kujua
Might-
hivyo.
yeah.
Ota ya Mwakenya huyu.
yeah. I think my mom still has a copy, and
Hi, Ali, are you sure she kept a copy?
I think so. And I'm
Ask her.
I'm gonna
Because you know
ask
that
her.
was seditious, bana.
I'm gonna ask
Those
her.
are
That's
what they call
evidence.
seditious publications.
And let me tell you, the school that I went
AKA
to,
Mwa Kenya.
the school I went to, all ministers, Kalonzo's kids were there. Remember, Kalonzo was already a minister at that time.
Correct, yes.
Kalonzo's kids were there. Mudavadi's kids were there. Like all ministers and all PSs would bring their kids there, and then the teachers were wives of wives of permanent secretaries. That was the environment.
Ilikuwa
Yeah.
system.
Yeah, I'm not even. I don't even know whether I'm supposed to say this, but remember, like the people who were involved in Goldenberg,
Yes.
they were
Yes,
just
yes.
busy interacting with them every day. So that thing became such a big deal because nakumbuka hiyo kitu. There were some teachers who liked me and they were able to suppress it, but it became such a big deal at home because back in those days, it was treasonous to think about.
Correct.
To think about
To
the
even
death.
to
Revolution,
yes,
yeah.
to write
Yeah.
anything that was against.
Yes.
Yes, you could not.
Forget posting a picture
Yes.
or an AI image.
Yeah.
Or
Just thinking.
just thinking
Just the
about
thought.
it.
Yeah.
Your parents could even know that you've thought about it. Na unapigwa.
Yeah. Just
Kwanza kuna
thinking.
siku mimi na bro wangu tunapiga story, tunaona news, alafu tukasema kiki msee kiupenda tu kudalia lift kwa gari za wase. Tuliamwendeni mlale karibu tuchapo hiyo siku. Unajua hiki kimsee ilikuwa ni Moi. Unajua vile alikuwa anafunguliwa gari anaingia anafunguliwa.
Yes.
Vitu mekaa hivi ndio naambia bro hiki kimse lakini kiwa pende tu kupewa lift kwa gari za wasi. Kwani ni nani? Yes, kwa tulisoma who's your tulipandishwa GHC basic GHC. Who's your president? Who's your MP? Who's your provincial commissioner? Who's your DO? Sasa hiyo unajua kiamba who's your MP? Baba Karanja kwa alikuwa neighbor wetu kumbe ni Mwenje. Unafaa kusema David Mwenje. Hizo siku like we were robots. We were being programmed on how to respond
and respond.
Yes. So that's the reason why I'm saying, like it's important to also acknowledge the granular gains that we've gotten over time. And I think part of the issue with Kibaki's era, there was a lull because Kibaki was such a different leader. People thought that we can never go back to where Moi was. But unfortunately, Ruto reminded us that that's always very close. Yeah. The number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. A lot of comments have been coming through.
My guy.
A lot of comments have been coming through. I can't read all of them. Sasha Spice anasema as an activist, I had to get a software because they always disable me. But this time, Ojwang, they couldn't. But they sent the usual death threats and they won't.
Kenyan has been hitting you.
Yeah, I know. Kenyan has been hitting me sideways. Yani, it's been a while since Sakaja, but he's been hitting me sideways vibaya sana. Kenyan anasema he cleaned town with extrajudicial killings. Skylar Roberts says Mishuki killings of Mungiki. Esther Mulusa says I thought the World Bank denied that Matiang'i worked for them. I don't know about that.
No, World Bank has never denied. I don't know if they were ever asked directly, but it's been an open secret if it was. Yeah,
but the guys who have been campaigning for Matiang'i, who started campaign in quotes because he hadn't declared, there's a point I was watching a video where one of them said we've been told to not talk about that World Bank story.
Okay.
And where he works.
Actually, from my insiders of World Bank, when he actually was getting the job, there were protests within the World Bank. Folks who are already there, who are Kenyans, who are working there, did not want the guy to work there. So it seems like and whether it's true or not, it seems like there was a hand somewhere, like there was
but allegedly,
like there was
an invisible.
There was a big brother there who came and put him there to make sure he stays put.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Please.
Yes. So he stays put and everything is A-okay with him and things that were happening in Kenya is, and now all of a sudden he came out and he put money down for what's that company, the ones of numbers? The guys who are doing UK's campaign.
Oh, you're talking about Cambridge Analytica. Yeah.
Aliwachotea.
Wow. Okay.
Allegedly. No. There's even I'll look for the paperwork. But there's a thing where the guy where he did it and he paid out money because what the whole point of it was to I don't know if it's Cambridge Analytica, something similar, but basically, when you want to go campaign and you want to start,
he was looking at his probability of becoming the
president.
But that's
feasibility.
Not necessarily.
It's called an exploratory.
But the amount of money that he paid is not money that you and I would ever think of paying.
Okay, so there's definitely.
Okay, we're talking about millions, and we're not talking about like 5 million or 3 million.
So
we're talking in dollars.
So the question is, where did he get the money? That's the question. That's what is suspicious.
See, Mika has given you guys leakage. Me, I would say just in case.
Allegedly.
So let me go back.
Pewa tenda nikiingia KE.
Yeah. So hapa Skylar Roberts anasema akili ziko hapa ni kali. Good conversations. Kaongo is done. And then Kenya Joe amekuwa akinipiga makumbo leo anasema Ali, if my memory serves me right, didn't you once mention on this show that you had a part-time gig as one of these goons? No, Kenyan Drew, I was never a goon. I have never been
He
a goon.
will deny, and the things that were said by Ali during that particular time are not Ali's sentiments.
No, I have never been a goon, but I was there.
Adjacent.
Seeing
adjacent.
And this is the terminology we talk about. You say it enough times, it becomes truth.
He was Goon adjacent.
I was seeing
Kenyan Dui, Ali was Kenyan, was Goon adjacent.
I was seeing Goonary activity, like
you are adjacent to it.
Akiwa Nairobi West.
You are adjacent to it.
And that's why I was saying, Sakaja, he's not very schooled in the Goonary science. He's not very.
And this
smooth.
is coming from
Because
an expert.
One of the biggest mistakes Sakaja made.
Adjacent.
One of the biggest.
This is coming from a Goon adjacent
Adjacent.
expert, subject matter expert.
No, one of the biggest blunders Sakaja's goons made is, first of all, they were videoing themselves.
Gaucho.
And then the second thing that they were doing, that they also started getting excited and they started looting. You know, when you're goons, you're supposed you have a mission. You have a specific mission and you have to stick to that mission.
See, one of-
But it's a mission not to loot.
No,
Ali.
looting is not necessarily part of the mission. So I think the reason why they got
to cause
excited
chaos.
is they saw a gap and they were like, oh, we can take a
Companion
laptop here.
too.
But you know they're also doing goonery in the age of social media.
In the yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Goon adjacent.
Yes.
Are you Goon adjacent?
No.
So,
It's Goon adjacent.
yeah. Sama Mika.
The one thing that I've liked about how the youth did things is that, number one, they fought back.
Yeah.
Hawa guns wengi kwa waoga.
No, they're scared. They work in groups.
Kwani watu waoga.
Yeah.
And when the youth fought back, right? Uliona kuna wenye walipiga ule mwenye alijaribu kuibia Hanifa. Hanifa alipiga jamaa, like alimchapa.
Oh my goodness, Hanifa. You know, like I don't even know
Ale-
what to say.
Ale-
Those are people who are very
alipiga mzee,
courageous.
unaona, like when you fight back and it shows they are cowards away. So when mko wengi, when you fight back wanaogopa. The second thing that I like about it is that Gaucho amehepa Kenya. Suale amehepa Nairobi, ameenda Ushago.
Niliona video ya Swale, yeah.
Yeah.
And I
I
apologize.
like the fact that watu mtaani kwa ground,
Minimal gains.
Yeah.
That are huge.
kwa ground watu wamwambia unajua nini? Unajua na wewe ni mamba, sawa.
But that's part of
Tukutane.
systems.
Unaona? And that's the thing. So I like the fact that the youth are holding them accountable,
Yes.
and they're fighting them back. Right? Hiyo ndio difference yenye tunaona saa hii na kitambo.
There's an
Si mnajifanya-
intolerance
okay,
to violence.
Oh, mnajifanya nini? Nyinyi ndio mnakuja. Umeona warning imetolewa?
Yeah.
Wasoandudhi wenyewe pia wametoa warning, wanaambia sasa vile nyinyi jifanya nini ati si atu demonstrate. Hawatu kuja na mandudhi najifanya nini wetu wanakuja kupigana cause goons wengi kuja na hizo mandudhi.
Wanakuja na nduthi. Okay, Sheila, you had
So-
something you wanted to add.
Yeah, it's part of those systems that the people on the ground are saying, like, we're not going to tolerate this thing, and therefore it cannot and must not happen.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Good point. Hapa Chief Louis anasema, I was just chilling, then boom, the greatest school on earth patch was mentioned, surely. In other news, Swale Sonko, Gaucho and Absalom are being used by politicians. If you look closely, the ground is already hostile such that they can no longer show up at Bunge la Wananchi. Swale has run off to Homa Bay. And I saw your linia. I saw your video yake aki apologize.
Back I saying he was going to participate in June 25th.
Yeah, I know, too late, too late.
And asking for forgiveness.
Yeah, too late you hapo. Kenyan Diaspora anasema, why is Ali telling us this story in third person, like he didn't have a front row seat to all of this? I was not part of this. You know, like I will say that again.
Like we said,
And then
he
the-
was Goon
Adjacent.
Yeah.
adjacent. Thank you kindly.
Skylar Roberts anasema, uko sure they are not looking for you. And then Esther Mulusa anasema, Tanzania is still under the throwback of socialism which suppresses dissenters. Joseph Francis, Ruto compared to Moi is a saint based on your discussions. And then Kenyan Diaspora anasema, while they were undoubtedly funny, what made ridiculous such a hit was that they were the first to truly demystify the presidency. And then Skylar Starehe Boys White Police Patrick Shaw. Yeah, Patrick Shaw was also a goon police officer. He was used to kill. He was used to kill.
He was like that guy of.
He was a
that
cop
Isli
for hire.
guy. That cop guy was killing kids. That guy.
Rashid. He was
Yeah,
the Rashid of
he's
the
a
of
Rashid
the
of
day.
back in the day.
I
Yeah,
know he
Patrick
was
Shaw.
he was
And then,
Scotland
um,
Yard.
And then Louis Anasema, the CEO of World Bank, just released a statement this past week wishing him well as he left to run for presidency. That's about Matiangi. Matiangi is using a Canadian campaign lobbying firm called Dickens and Madson. He paid the firm 250,000, not Kenya shillings, not Tanzania shillings, but US dollars.
And not Zimbabwean dollars.
Not Zimbabwean dollars, US dollars. And
Just
then,
repeat the name of that farm again.
it's called Dickens and Madson. $250,000. That is a lot of money. And then up as Skylar Nasema, Ali, stop educating the goons, please. And
Too
then-
late, Skylar.
And then
Goon
Kenyan
adjacent.
Nasema, Ali, you absolutely have the right to editorialize your past, but the internet never forgets Once this show wraps, I'm heading back to review the old episodes. So for
Wow.
so for now, we'll say you are allegedly Goon. Maze Kinyajui wanakujaga na
Goon adjacent.
zingine. Yeah. And then Winnie Barnes says, good show and great conversation. The speculation that Safaricom is tracking people is outlandish. Governments use spyware to track people. Once a spyware like Pegasus is inside your phone, it becomes like a digital spy living in your pocket. Reads your texts and emails, listens to your phone calls, sees your photos and videos, turns on your microphone and camera secretly, tracks your location in real time, access passwords in apps like WhatsApp, Signal, or Telegram. And the worst part is you won't know it's there. No pop-ups, no slowdowns, nothing.
There's a show. 60 Minutes did a show. Did an episode or a segment.
Yeah. On Pegasus.
On Pegasus.
Yeah, I saw that episode, and I think
Very
everybody
scary
should
because they were tracking a Turkish
yeah.
lady. I think.
That was the Turkish lady was Jamal
Khashoggi's
Khashoggi's wife.
Yes.
That was Jamal Khashoggi's wife. So they attacked her phone.
Yes.
So they attacked her phone.
Whatever
I
they
think-
did,
yeah,
they accessed.
they penetrated her
So
phone.
how do they install this? How does it?
So it comes in
text.
innocently.
Malware.
It comes in as malware. It could
Yeah,
be a text.
it could be something you click.
could be a link.
I could send you something, a link or whatever,
Yeah.
and you click it. You don't know.
Yeah, and once they have control of your phone,
It's a wrap.
they download everything. They can just go to a computer and see who you've texted, who you've called. They can see everything. They can your camera. Like right now, they can take control of your camera and see what you're doing, what
Your
you're saying. with your
environment, who you
Yeah.
with.
Do we remember the time KRA was trying to get our phones once we entered JKI? Do we remember something like that?
Yes.
Yes.
This was last year.
Recent. It was recent.
It was.
yeah.
We even did a show about it.
Yeah.
How there was a requirement to your phones. You had to declare that your phone. And this was actually last year.
Was it last year? Or
Yes,
last year?
very
Ah,
recent.
very
last time,
recent.
very recent.
Yeah.
It's very recent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very recent. So again, the number to call is 202-683-4570.
Watu wapendi kupiga simu.
Press star 5 to speak. Now I want us to get us to a critical part because tunakaribia sasa pale. And I want us to talk about something that most activists avoid. And can anyone guess what that is? Anyone going once, going twice?
Playing dirty.
No, wachana na hiyo hapo. Hiyo hapo activists talk about it. I want to talk about faith.
Paid activism.
Oh,
No,
faith,
faith.
religion.
Oh.
Yes,
Oh,
religion.
faith. Okay.
When people say religion in Kenya, they often, and I'm saying this, like in a very polite way, so Kenyanji don't come for me. When people say religion in Kenya,
He's
they,
coming.
they often mean Christianity. Yeah, but they will say religion, but they often mean Christianity. But this leaves, like more than, I think, close to 30% of Kenyans, whether
Very
Muslims or
Indians
other
Indians
groups.
or other
Yeah.
religious.
It leaves,
Other
it leaves them out, kabsa.
Kabisa.
So the good thing is we have, like a good representation of a Christian and a Muslim on the panel. So what I want to know is, especially when it comes to the younger people, looking at morality in a very different way, and resistance, and looking also at resistance outside the traditional religious institutions. Maybe let me start with you, Joy. As a Christian, how do you see Gen Z navigating the contradictions between what the church preaches and what people live, especially on justice? Joy.
So I'm one of the people that believed in the separation of the state and religion.
Church and state. Yeah.
So I think that religion should be a personal experience. I don't think it should be used as a rhetoric in the political space. I personally think when people lead with that kind of religion, I think it's usually with an intention to control people who are religiously brainwashed or have religious psychosis, which is a lot, especially in a country with a lot of poverty. I think that poor people are the easiest to manipulate with religion because there's not much to really give people hope in such a dysfunctional country. And so you have a lot of people that have religious psychosis, and so when they see a leader who is religion adjacent, even though we know very well that someone like our current president is not religious in the way that religion is supposed to be, but for him it is a tool to control people. And because most of the people in Kenya are below the poverty level, they're going to believe him. And that's why I think that religion and politics should be completely separated. If you are a Christian, good for you, but keep that to yourself. Focus on the work that has been given to you. And if you really, really want us to respect you as a Christian, and as a Christian myself, let it be in your actions.
Why were young people occupying churches? Because that's what started happening.
Because those are the centers of manipulation, and Christianity and politics have become intertwined to control the masses, unfortunately. So you have money being funneled from the state. I mean, back then when Rachel was still had the bravery to still talk to people, I don't know where she went, but back then she would have prayer sessions at State House, you know, religious events paid for, sponsored by the government, which I thought was ridiculous, because that money then was being funneled into churches. Churches, you know, churches are natural campaigning hotspot for campaigning grounds, right? You have people who come to church every Sunday, big churches, 100, 500 people. It's a natural way to find a group of people that you can talk to and give your political information. You also have people like pastors who are seen as figures of authority, and they're very well respected. And so if they're getting 20 million on the side from the government, what is he gonna tell the people on Sunday? This man has been chosen by God to lead us. This is the one he has chosen. If you don't follow him, then this is our God appointed leader, and we need to follow them.
And remember, he was always carrying around a Bible.
Yeah. Miss
Kasongo.
Yeah. But now, how, you know, like we've known, you know, like the church has been very influential.
Infiltrated, yeah.
But how are younger people, is this influence infiltrating to, let's say, people under the age of 30? Is this influence of the church infiltrating to them, or how are younger people relating to the church? Is the church, is the power, you know, like
I can
diminishing?
Speak about myself.
Yes.
I think definitely. For me, the church is not an authority to tell me who and who not, or what not to do. I relinquish that to my own personal experience with my own personal religion, and the kind of decisions that I make are at my person, not being influenced by anyone. And I'm not afraid to criticize in the name, you know. I remember you can't criticize the man of God. Like, this is the chosen, he can do no wrong, right? I think what people my age is, they're not afraid to see fakeness even in the church, and you're not afraid to call it out. Said you're a fake pastor, and I'm never coming back here again. You teach, your gospel is prosperity gospel every Sunday is how can I be a millionaire, right? You have outlandish extreme ideas. I'm gonna call you out, and I'm gonna say your church is built on foolishness.
Wow.
End of story.
Wow.
Okay, but what about the relationship with Christianity generally? Forget about the church. How are younger people in your experience?
I would say they're definitely becoming less and less religious. I think there is religious trauma in the Kenyan society.
Okay.
Outside of politics, number one, politics I think is a major one. Our Bible-loving president turned out to be a murderer. So there's trauma there. I think the worst, allegedly. It's not alleged. But
Huyu ataingia Kenya.
Ni sawa.
Yeah.
So number one, I think the worst strategy any president can do right now is come with the Bible. People immediately, I see, like Morara had started, I said, oh my God, are you root around too? Because I don't want to see right now a presidential candidate mwenye ameshika Biblia. Nilisema and then anapiga magoti I said, oh no, we have another one. Here's another one. I think young people are becoming less religious because of, one, politicians are the biggest hypocrites when it comes to religion. Number two, the church, I mean, there's a saying that said there's no hate like Christian love. Wow. Churches are so toxic. I mean, churches are just...
And on cue.
on cue. So churches have so much, and that could be a whole other topic at how churches protect some of the most evil people.
I'm sorry, Ibu, repeat that what you said earlier.
There's no hate
better
like
than
Christian love. The
What?
church holds so much hatred.
Son
The
of a
church
twang, guys.
can be the most evil place ever, because the
Look
kind of
at-
characters you have in there, they're the most judgmental, the most critical,
Look at the
the most
evangelicals
selfish.
here in
It's
America.
insane.
Look at the
It's insane.
evangelicals, the clangelicals here in America.
It's insane. And so you have young people who are critical thinkers, right? They've been raised to think about things critically, not to be brainwashed. They see how these people are acting and they say, I'd rather not. I'd rather not. And you know, that I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but human beings are spiritual beings, right? And so if you have that break of when people no longer have that spiritual side of themselves, because everything that is spiritual is being seen or has been very negative, then also they lose a sense of self, I would say. Be breaking away. So, you know.
Okay, wow, that is so powerful. Yeah, but